Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
Welcome back to FPL graduates and welcome back to another video. And in today's video, of course, we're looking ahead towards, chip season in FPL. Of course, got the FA Cup weekend this weekend. So we are looking ahead at a little bit of the strategies that we can adopt going into these game weeks and sort of unpicking some of those strategies and sort of giving you an insight into which ones are going to be best for the upcoming game weeks for your team.
Yeah, so we're going to talk through our strategy mainly that we sort of deployed so far this season. Obviously, myself and Ben have used our assistant manager chip at the same time between game week 24 and 26. I went slot Glasner, which got 48. Ben went Moyes Emery, which got 44. So to be honest, I think both of us a fairly decent result for the assistant manager chip. Obviously, no one had played it before that time, so yeah, we obviously see throughout the rest of the season how that gets on. But so far, I think, around 45 to 50 points is probably the aim when you're using that chip, particularly with how, table bonus is working. It can be so good. Like, Glasner showed 20 points last week, 20 points this week. He's doing it all, which is really, really good. We will come on to alternative options for assistant manager towards the end of the video. So if you haven't used that chip yet, stick around for that. Going into game week 29, Ben, obviously it's going to be a blank game week. Obviously, you were potentially free hitting that week. Now sort of changed your mind on that. Do you want to touch on who blanks and what you'll be doing?
Yeah, I think first of all, with a lot of FPL managers, there can be almost a bit of a stigma on sort of going back on your word and change your mind. I think like with any game, you're allowed to change your mind in what you think is the best strategy. And I think in this situation where we've got the blanks and where the doubles will fall, it feels sort of quite easy for most managers to get a full 11. Of course, in that blank game week, there's no Liverpool, no Palace, no Newcastle, and no
Villa.
Villa, of course, Villa as well. So yeah, with a lot of the FPL picks from that, a lot of managers have gone from 3 Liverpool to 2 Liverpool with various injuries and the assistant managership, of course. So yeah, if you have got sort of below sort of 7, 6 blankers at the moment, then you know you probably wouldn't be looking at free hitting. And I think in it's almost like a rare case scenario that you would have used all your transfers and still have a load of players from these 4 teams. So, in my opinion, I think you can get away with it a little bit more. There's going to be bigger blanks coming up. So, yeah, I think in this scenario for most FPL managers across the board, it's going to be likely that you're going to sort of avoid using any chips over this game week.
Okay, then. So moving forward, then we're looking at potential wildcard game weeks. So we've got game week 31 sort of pinned on here. This is probably the most likely week that I would wildcard personally, just because I'll be looking to set up my team for, first of all, the triple captaincy in game week 32, which we'll come on to in a moment. But then game week 33 is projected to be the largest double game week that we'll have remaining of the season. This is when FA Cup semi-final finalists will sort of play their fixtures a week early than when they blank in game week 34, which again we'll come on to in a moment. So yeah, obviously I'll be trying to set up my team with as many Newcastle and Palace players as I think sort of adequate for that week. Obviously, we don't know who is going to double in game week 33 or who is going to blank in game week 34 just yet, because the FA Cup obviously still hasn't sort of reached those latter stages where the semi-final teams are sort of declared. But yeah, that is my initial plan at the moment. Is there another time where you'd consider using your wildcard, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, you could use it straight after the free hit and 30 and just sort of go from there. But of course, in order to maximize the doubles as best you can, you want as little time between wildcarding and using your chips as possible. So for me, I think it's the best time to hit that wildcard at either in 30 or 31. I don't think there's sort of like a, best case scenario. As soon as you get past that point, you're almost going to be chasing the pack in terms of your wildcard. Very similar players are going to be coming in on board. And of course, if you do have that triple captain chip to use, Alexander Isak is going to be a great time to potentially use that. Man United aren't the best anyway at the moment. And of course, like with 2 home fixtures for Newcastle, they have been very strong at home, for a couple of years now. So yeah, I think it's very good. And of course, with the doubles and blanks that we've got coming up due to FA Cup, it's going to be very likely that the teams that double blank the very next game week, just how it sort of ends up being with FPL, you've all got to play the same amount of games in a season. So if you have doubles that come up, they've got to blank at some point as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the main thing about Game Week 32 is that it's the only game week really that the triple captain can fall into now if you want to aim for a double. There's no sort of doubles that I personally would use it. I wouldn't use it in 33, for example, just because of the bench boost. It's going to be the best opportunity for that. So yeah, Newcastle obviously face United and Palace at home. Palace face City away, and then Newcastle away. So not as good of a double as you'd expect for Palace. There is potential for both of these sides to double again in Game Week 33, all dependent on their FA Cup progress and obviously who they face in Game Week 34 as well, on their progress as well. It's a bit complicated, but overall, Newcastle and Palace double in 32, and both me and Ben will probably be triple captaining Alexander Isak.
Okay, so next up, we're going to go into double game week 33, and this is projected to be the biggest double game week that we've got left of the season so far. So the template pick for FPL managers is going to be using that bench boost, and a lot of managers will have that left. And in my opinion, and I'm sure in Josh's opinion as well, this is going to be the best time to use it. Of course, there could be, like Josh said, Newcastle and Palace sort of back-to-back double game weeks, which is fantastic. And of course, you can load up on the wildcard in game week 31, because at this point in time, when we hit that wildcard, we are going to know what games that we have doubling and what blankers that we have in 34 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously the bench boost is probably one of the harder chips to maximise just because it requires so much planning. So using that wild card, as we mentioned before, in a relatively quick succession. Ideally, you'd like to do it the game week before, but with the way that the sort of the game weeks are planning out and the triple captaincy falling into 32 as the sort of the best bet or best remaining bet if you're wanting a double game week. This sort of is the best strategy, I'd say, in terms of trying to get that bench boost ready. Obviously, if you have like 5 free transfers, you could probably do your best to get that. But I know a lot of people won't have 2 playing goalkeepers, for example, and probably that's what stops a lot of bench boosts in those single game weeks. But by all means, if you wanted to, single game weeks are also fine if you like the look of your bench boost. Moving on to blank game week 34 then. So this is projected to be the largest blank of the season, depending on obviously the semi-finalists of the FA Cup. The maximum it could be, I think, is like 8 fixtures, or 8 teams, are affected and be blanking in this game week. So, that's quite a large proportion, almost 50% of the Premier League not having games. So, yeah, going into that week, I think I'm almost guaranteed and locked in to use the free hit. It's obviously a lot larger than that one in 29, as we discussed. Most people probably are selling in advance their assets for that week as well. Obviously, Liverpool assets, Villa assets, Newcastle assets, and Palace assets, as we previously discussed. So yeah, it should be an interesting one. Obviously, we will have an alternative sort of strategy as well. If you don't have your free hit, or if you're going to use your free hit in 29, of how you can get about that massive blank in Game Week 34. So yeah, on to that strategy now. So this is if you're either going to free hit in 29, or if you've already used your free hit so far this season. So as we say, yeah, free hit game week 29. If you've used your free hit already, just try and navigate the game weeks as best as you can. I know it's quite vague advice, but especially for 29, it's very doable to get out that game week with 11 players. A lot of people would have sold those players already that will be going on to blank. So yeah, for me, I think that's quite an easy game week to navigate. Obviously, you would still remain with the triple captain in 32, bench boost in 33. The bad thing about this is that you can't really build up that bench boost because you're probably going to have to wildcard in game week 34 in order to get yourself a playing team, depending on how many teams blank. Of course, if we see a couple of championship teams in the semi-finals, the FA Cup, then obviously that would be great for people who have used their free hit already or plan to use it in 29, because obviously there'll be less Premier League teams blanking in that game week. What's your suggestion, Ben? If someone's used their free hit already, how is best to navigate this sort of situation?
Week by week is not using single free transfers in any given game week is going to be tough to do, and you're almost very much relying on your bench assets to be able to pull you through these next few weeks. So for me, of course, navigate into 29. If you need to use 3 or 4 free transfers, then fine. But as soon as you get past 29, I probably wouldn't use a transfer until that sort of post game week 32 into game week 33, and load up on 4 or 5 transfers and be able to use all of those on maximizing the bench boost. Of course, a lot of managers, if they're going to have Alexander Isak anyway in this situation, so that's not the worst case in the world either. It'd just be a case that you'd have to keep him for that free hit, or if you don't have the free hit, you have to keep him anyway for 29, and then going into the next few game weeks. Yeah, it's all about banking up those transfers. Try not to make those rash moves, and I think with this strategy, you're going to have to go for 90-minute men guaranteed. You're going to have to go for the ones that aren't going to get rotated, aren't injury prone. So yeah, I mean, it's in terms of sort of safety, you can make it as safe as you possibly can, and you're not going to sort of feel like you're behind everyone else. Okay, so in terms of assistant manager options that we've got here, there's a couple of options here that we can go for, and a lot of them revolve around that double game week that Palace and Newcastle have coming up. Obviously, the Glasner pick has been so fantastic over the last 2 game weeks with the 20 pointers coming up, that with what they've got at the moment, as things stand, there is potential for a lot of bonus points to come from table bonus, etc. So that's an exciting sort of option. Of course, the fixtures are very tough, and you are going to need to use the assistant manager chip probably before game week 33, because it's going to be tough to use it at any point after that, especially with people bench boosting, free hitting, wildcarding, etc. So you sort of want to use it in a period that you can take full advantage of. And I think in that period between 30 and 33, you're going to want to use that assistant manager chip then, and make sure that you don't set it so it's active for game week 34. That's probably the key there.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be an interesting one. I think, if you've used your triple captain already, I really like the Glasner 30 to 32. It sort of allows you to continue to play your bench boost in game week 33, which is also really important. Obviously, you've got to bear in mind that when you have your assistant manager active, you can't use another chip during that time. So when we're talking about wildcard in 31, you won't be able to do that. So yeah, just bear that in mind when you activate it. For me personally, I'd be tempted to go later in the season and maybe bank on some table bonus games when teams have nothing to play for, maybe like 36 to 38. Obviously, if you want it in double game weeks, this is probably one of the only chances that you're going to get. It's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, if you still have it remaining, it's going to be weighing up what you sort of prefer. Because obviously, we've seen how powerful the assistant manager chip is so far. And I would probably prioritize it over the likes of a bench boost and stuff like that. But equally, you're going to be trying to fit in these like bench boost chips in single game weeks. It's going to be really, really difficult to sort of try and do. So yeah, just bear that in mind when you are thinking about your assistant manager chip. Obviously, we've only got some short-term options on here because a lot can change with the table and stuff like that. So yeah, just bear that in mind before activating the chip. Okay, then, so that wraps up our strategy guide for the rest of the FPL season. I know a few guys have commented down below of like what we're doing for our strategy and how it's best to navigate without certain chips. So hopefully that sort of covers it off a little bit. Obviously, if you've got any sort of unique situations where you've got one chip left, let us know in the comments and we'll try and help you as best possible.
Yeah, it's certainly an exciting time in FPL at the moment with loads of chips to be played and not too many weeks left anyway. So as usual, please remember to like, comment and subscribe. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
next time. Have a good game week, everyone.
So you may rise, but you'll never make me wanna stick around you.